Rain tapped steadily on the windshield as the taxi idled by the curb. The driver, a weathered man in his late 40s named Malik, was about to light a cigarette when he noticed her. A woman in a drenched wedding gown sat slumped on a park bench, mascara streaked down her cheeks, clutching a bouquet like it was the last piece of her sanity. Malik said, "You okay, miss?" She looked up startled, but didn't flinch. Her voice trembled. "Do I look okay?" Malik hesitated, then gestured to the passenger seat. "Get in, it's cold." She slid into the cab, her veil trailing behind. No questions asked, no judgments offered. Just a cab, warm air, and a man with no expectations. She whispered, "Don't judge me by my dress." Malik replied, "I wasn't. I was judging you by your eyes, and they say you've been through hell." The cab's heater hummed softly, a low lullaby in the silence between them. Malik didn't glance at her again, respecting her wordless pain. The bride, still catching her breath, leaned her head against the cool window. Her voice was almost a whisper. "I ran before the vows, before the lies became law." Malik kept his eyes on the road, steering steadily through the rain-slick streets. "You had your reasons," he said simply. She looked at him with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Everyone told me to be grateful, that he was a good catch." She shook her head. "But he never saw me, not once." The cab turned a corner, passing neon reflections. Malik said nothing. Sometimes silence carries more weight than sympathy. Malik finally spoke, his voice low, calm. "You're not the first soul I've picked up running from something in white." The bride turned, brows furrowed. "Really?" Malik nodded. "Weddings bring out the best masks. I once drove a groom who left because he realized he loved the best man." A chuckle escaped her lips, surprising both of them. "What happened to him?" Malik shrugged. "He left the country. Sent me a postcard once," said he finally exhaled. The bride fell silent, but a faint smile played on her lips. For the first time, the cab didn't feel like a trap, but a tunnel. A passage. "What's your name?" she asked. Malik paused. "Doesn't matter. Tonight, I'm just the driver." The city whispered around them, flickers of late-night life passing by. The bride asked softly, "Where do people go when they don't know where to go?" Malik considered that. Some find bars, others find cliffs, but most, they just keep moving until their heart catches up. She stared forward. "I thought I was in love, but I think I was just afraid of being alone." Malik replied, "It's hard to tell the difference when you're drowning in white lace and everyone's cheering." Her eyes welled up again, but no tears fell. The cab turned past an old church, its bell tower haloed by rain. For a moment both stared at it in silence. A symbol of what she left behind, or maybe escape. They drove on in silence until Malik asked gently, "Want to go somewhere specific?" She shook her head. "Just somewhere far from where I said yes." He nodded. "I know a place. It's quiet. No questions." The bride turned slightly, voice steadier. "I never thought I'd end up like this, crying in a stranger's car in a dress that cost more than my rent." Malik smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised what stories this seat has heard." As the rain eased, the cab emerged into a quieter street, lined with sleeping trees and darkened shops. She looked out the window and whispered, "Maybe this is the start, not the escape." Malik didn't answer. He just drove. The rain had softened to a mist, clinging to the cab's windows like forgotten tears. Malik pulled into a quiet overlook just beyond the city, where the skyline glimmered like a faded promise. The bride stepped out, her gown now heavy with dried rain, her heels abandoned in the back seat. She walked barefoot to the edge of the hill, arms wrapped around herself. Malik stood nearby, giving space without leaving. "This used to be my favorite view," she said, voice distant. "Back when I believed in happy endings." He didn't interrupt. Just waited. "I thought I was broken because I didn't feel anything walking down that aisle. But I wasn't broken, I was waking up." Malik nodded, staring out at the quiet city. "Better to wake up before the dream becomes a cage." She turned to face him, the wind tugging gently at her veil. "Do you think I was selfish?" Malik met her gaze. I think selfishness is staying for the wrong reasons just to keep others happy. She looked down. He was kind, stable, everything they told me to want. Malik stepped closer. But he wasn't what your heart wanted. She nodded slowly, lips tightening. I didn't run because I hated him. I ran because I didn't love him enough to live a lie. The words hung in the air, raw and unfiltered. Malik said, "That's not selfish, that's honest. And honesty takes more courage than silence." A soft breeze carried away her next words before they could be spoken. Back inside the cab, the silence stretched comfortably. Malik leaned against the steering wheel, glancing at her reflection in the passenger window. "You ever love someone who didn't love you back?" she asked quietly. Malik smiled, just a shadow of it. "Once, long time ago, I chased her across 3 cities, only to find she'd never stopped loving someone else." The bride tilted her head. "What did you do?" He exhaled, drove home, and learned to forgive myself for hoping. She sighed, curling her fingers on the window glass. "I thought I was weak for leaving, but now I think I was weak for almost staying." Malik looked at her this time with admiration. "Then strength finally caught up to you." The cab's engine hummed back to life as Malik slowly pulled away from the overlook. The bride settled into her seat, this time not shivering. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope, the edges creased. "I wrote my vows," she murmured, "but never read them." She handed it to Malik. "Want to hear what I would have said?" He glanced at her, surprised, then nodded. She opened the envelope and read, voice steady but heavy. "I promise to never disappear into someone else's expectations. I promise to keep listening to the voice I silence when I'm scared." She paused. "I never wrote his name into the vows?" Malik said, "Maybe because they were never for him." She looked at him then, understanding something she hadn't before. They drove in thoughtful silence, the city growing smaller behind them. Malik finally asked, "Where would you go if no one expected anything of you?" She thought for a long moment. "A bookstore in a sleepy town, by the sea, with cats and strong coffee." Malik smiled. "Sounds like freedom." She returned the smile. "And you?" He glanced at her. "I'm already where I'm supposed to be. Behind the wheel, just helping people find their turns." The bride looked out at the horizon, a hint of dawn beginning to stain the sky. "Then tonight, you helped someone make the right one." Malik nodded, gripping the wheel just a little tighter. The road stretched ahead, clean and new. The first sign of dawn kissed the horizon as Malik's cab rolled into a sleepy coastal town, where the fog still lingered between rooftops. The bride sat straighter, her breath catching when the scent of salt water touched the air. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Malik smiled without looking at her. "Quiet towns are good for noisy hearts." They passed shuttered shops and a solitary man unlocking a bakery, the scent of rising dough wafting faintly into the car. "You ever think about starting over?" she asked. "Every morning," Malik replied. "But life usually beats me to it." She chuckled softly. For the first time she didn't feel like she was running. She felt like she was arriving. They stopped at a harbor overlook where the sea stretched endlessly, calm and glassy. The bride stepped out barefoot again, the gravel cool against her skin, her dress trailing behind like a whisper. She stood at the edge, inhaling deeply. "I thought I'd feel regret," she said, eyes scanning the horizon. "But all I feel is stillness." Malik leaned on the hood of the cab, arms crossed loosely. "Stillness is rare. People spend years looking for it." She turned to him. "Why'd you bring me here?" Malik shrugged. "You needed somewhere untouched. Somewhere without mirrors." She smiled gently. "Then this is perfect. Because for the first time, I don't need to see myself to know who I am." As the morning sun rose higher, they sat on a low stone wall near the harbor. A fisherman waved from a boat, and the bride waved back with a quiet smile. "He would have hated this," she said. "No schedule, no audience." Malik raised an eyebrow. "And you?" She looked around. I think this is the first place that didn't ask me to perform. Malik nodded, eyes on the water. Freedom's not always loud. Sometimes it's just the absence of pressure. She laughed lightly. You're wiser than you let on. He smiled. Drivers hear a lot. Over time it sticks. She stared at the sea again. I don't know what's next, but maybe that's okay. Malik responded, maybe that's the point. The bride stood and took a few slow steps down the rocky path toward the water. She paused, turned back, and asked, how do you know when you're ready to begin again? Malik answered without hesitation. When staying the same starts hurting more than changing. I was scared now. She nodded, biting her lower lip, heart pounding with the weight of choices. I want to be more than a symbol in someone else's fairy tale, she said. Malik approached, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. Then write your own, page by page. Don't let the dress write it for you. She looked down at the lace and silk she once cherished, now torn and soaked. It's not who I am anymore. With the sea breeze lifting her veil, the bride stepped closer to the shore and slowly removed it, letting it flutter from her fingers and drift into the wind. It landed on the surface of the water, floating for a moment before sinking. Malik remained at a respectful distance. She stood straighter, her spine no longer bent by fear or guilt. Goodbye, she whispered, not to him, but to the version of herself who waited in silence, who swallowed doubts, who smiled for everyone else. She turned back to the cab, barefoot and bridal, but no longer a bride. Malik opened the door for her. Where to now? She smiled. Anywhere that doesn't expect me to disappear. As they left the coast behind, the bride sat differently now, upright, alert, her eyes focused ahead instead of the past. Malik drove without a map, just following the road, and her mood. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore, it breathed with possibilities. I didn't think I could survive this day, she said softly. But you did, Malik replied. She glanced out the window, watching fields give way to quiet towns. When I was younger I used to write letters to myself, promises. I stopped when I met him. Malik responded gently, maybe it's time to write one more. She nodded slowly. One that starts with, thank you for leaving. Malik smiled. Now that's a letter worth keeping. They stopped at a roadside diner, old, charming, the kind that serves coffee with silence. Malik parked the cab and gestured to the booth near the window. Breakfast. She hesitated, then smiled. Only if they have pancakes. Inside the place smelled of syrup and stories. The bride walked in still wearing her wedding dress, and for a moment, everyone stared. But Malik walked beside her like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. They sat. No one whispered. No one asked. The waitress came over and said, Row night. The bride smiled. Revelatory. The waitress poured coffee and nodded. Those are the ones worth remembering. With 2 plates of pancakes and endless refills of coffee between them, Malik finally asked, So what's the plan? The bride chewed slowly, swallowed, then said, Start over, somewhere small, change my name. Maybe just use my middle one for now. Malik nodded approvingly. New names, like new roads, are sometimes all we need. She tilted her head. And you? What'll you do after this ride ends? He looked out the window thoughtfully. Same thing I do every day. Drive. But maybe today, I'll take the long way home. She smiled. You're more than a driver, you know. He smirked. Don't ruin the mystery. Outside the diner, the bride walked ahead a few steps, stretching her arms toward the sky, like someone trying on freedom for the first time. Her dress fluttered with the morning breeze, and Malik leaned against the cab, watching. You know, she called back, this dress feels lighter now. He chuckled. Maybe it's not the dress that changed. She spun once, her bare feet on gravel, laughter genuine. Maybe it's me. Malik walked over, keys in hand. Then, let's mark the moment. He held out a disposable camera from his glove compartment. 1 photo. No filters. She grinned and posed, the sun framing her like the opening of a new chapter. The photo tucked safely in her pocket, they returned to the cab. As Malik started the engine, the bride touched his shoulder. "Thank you. Not just for the ride, for letting me fall apart without asking me to explain." Malik nodded. Falling apart isn't the end. Sometimes it's the only way something honest begins. She looked out the window again, this time smiling at the world rushing past. The road was no longer a blur. It was a beginning. Malik adjusted the rearview mirror. "So, bookstore by the sea." She laughed. "That's the dream. For now, just keep driving." The cab moved forward, quiet tires on a waking road, two strangers bound by one unforgettable detour. The highway narrowed into a scenic route, framed by trees turning gold with the early season's change. The bride rested her head against the window, watching the world blur into warm hues. Malik drove slower now, as if time had thickened. "Ever think life gives us do-overs in strange packaging?" she asked. Malik grinned. "All the time. Sometimes it's a wrong turn. Sometimes it's a runaway bride in my passenger seat." She smiled. "I used to think happiness came with certainty, but now I think it comes with choices." Malik nodded. "And courage to choose yourself." They passed a wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Clearwater." She whispered, "Let's stop here, just for a moment." They parked near an old secondhand bookstore tucked between a coffee shop and a flower stall. The bride stepped out, transfixed. "This feels right." Malik leaned against the hood, arms crossed, watching her take hesitant steps toward the window display. Inside, books lay stacked haphazardly, a ginger cat sleeping atop a pile. She pressed her palm against the glass. "This is the kind of place I dreamed of," she whispered. "Then why not go in?" Malik asked. She hesitated. "Because if I do, it means I've really left. It means there's no going back." Malik stepped forward. "Maybe there never was." She looked at the door, then at him, and smiled. Inside the bookstore, the scent of aged pages and quiet dreams wrapped around her like an embrace. The owner, an older woman with silver hair and a knowing smile, simply nodded as the bride stepped in. "Looking for something?" she asked. "Maybe myself," the bride said softly. The woman pointed to a shelf labeled, "New Chapters." The bride smiled. She walked slowly through the aisles, fingertips brushing spines. Malik remained outside, giving her space. But through the glass, he watched her shed the weight of expectation with every step deeper into the store. This wasn't just a detour, it was a handoff, a baton of freedom. She emerged from the bookstore with a small brown paper bag, and a smile that didn't need explanation. "Found what you were looking for?" Malik asked. "Yes," she said, holding up a blank journal. "The first page just says, 'Today, I didn't disappear.'" Malik's eyes softened. "Then you've already started writing it." She laughed. "I don't even know where I'll sleep tonight." Malik shrugged. "That's tomorrow's mystery. Today you made a choice." She stepped closer. "What do I owe you?" Malik smiled gently. "Nothing. Just promise me this won't be your ending." She held his gaze. "It's not. It's barely my prologue." They stood for a moment longer, the silence between them now sacred. Then Malik opened the passenger door, but she shook her head. "I think I walk from here." He didn't argue. Instead, he extended his hand. "You were right, by the way." She raised an eyebrow. "About what?" He smiled. "Not judging you by your dress." She laughed and took his hand. "Thank you, Malik, for the road, for the mirror I didn't know I needed." He tipped his head. "Drive safe, wherever you end up." She turned, the journal clutched to her chest, walking barefoot down the cobbled path lined with open windows, her white gown catching the breeze like wings. The cab's tires hummed against the highway as Malik drove alone again. The passenger seat still held the faint imprint of the bride, a single white petal from her bouquet left behind. He didn't remove it, didn't clean the seat. Some passengers leave stains, others leave stories. and she had left a quiet kind of strength. The sky was cloudless now, vast and blue, and Malik rolled the window down, letting in the wind. He thought of all the people he had driven, the secrets absorbed into his steering wheel. But none felt like this. None had reminded him that even drivers need direction sometimes. She didn't just change course, he murmured. She changed the destination. Malik stopped at a roadside gas station, the kind with handwritten signs and a single pump. He filled the tank, but his eyes lingered on the horizon. An old man on a bench nearby nodded toward the cab. "You look like you lost something." Malik smiled. "No, sir. I dropped someone off right where they needed to be." The man squinted, amused. "Rare gift that, knowing when to let someone go," Malik replied, "or knowing they never really belonged to you in the first place." The man nodded, lighting a cigarette. "Keep driving. You've got stories to deliver." Malik tipped his head and got back in the car, the engine turning like a heartbeat. That night, Malik parked beneath a blinking motel sign, the kind that only half lit. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, spinning shadows into circles. He thought about his own stories, the ones he hadn't told. A photo fell from his wallet, worn at the edges. A younger version of himself, arm around a woman whose eyes still haunted him. "Maybe I should have run too," he whispered. But instead of regret, he felt a strange peace. The cab ride hadn't just been hers, it had been his too. A mirror ride. Two lives intersecting for one night, both changed forever. He closed his eyes and let go of her face for the first time in years. Meanwhile, in the seaside town she now called home, the bride sat behind the bookstore's counter, barefoot, hair tied up, a pencil tucked behind her ear. Her wedding dress hung like a ghost in the back room, untouched, folded, but not hidden. A young girl entered the shop holding her mother's hand, wide-eyed. "Are you a princess?" the child asked. The bride laughed, kneeling down. "No, sweetheart. I'm something better. I'm real." The girl smiled and took a book. As they left, the bride wrote something in her journal. "The truth isn't loud. It's just steady." The doorbell jingled again. Life didn't wait for closure. It just kept arriving. In the early morning, she stepped outside with a coffee in hand, watching the sea breathe its endless rhythm. Her journal lay open on her lap, the last line written. "Today, I belong to myself." A figure approached slowly, an older woman from next door, offering a flower in exchange for a book recommendation. The bride smiled, handing her a novel. "You might like this one, it's about second chances." The woman nodded. "Aren't we all?" As the day began, and the town stretched awake, she realized something simple and life-altering. She hadn't escaped. She'd emerged. And this finally was living. Weeks passed. The bride, no longer a bride, just a woman now, had found rhythm in the quiet life. She repaired shelves, brewed coffee for regulars, and stocked new arrivals in the bookstore. Every evening, she sat by the sea and wrote in her journal. One afternoon, a yellow cab appeared on the street, familiar and steady. Malik stepped out, dressed the same, but somehow different. She rushed out, laughing. "You found me." He held up a small envelope. "You left this in the seat." She opened it. It was her vow card. "I thought it was lost." He nodded. "Not everything we leave behind wants to be forgotten." She smiled. "Stay for tea?" He answered. "I was hoping you'd ask." They sat at the bookstore's tiny porch table, sipping tea from mismatched cups. Malik looked around. "This place suits you." She shrugged modestly. "It's honest. It doesn't ask for perfection." He nodded. "Neither did you, but you gave something real." She glanced down at the vow card in her lap. "I never finished writing it." Malik leaned back. "Maybe because it wasn't meant for him." She met his eyes. "Maybe it was meant for me." Silence followed, not awkward, but complete. A kind of quiet where nothing needed fixing. Just acknowledgement. Just presence. Malik smiled. "So what comes next in the story?" She raised her cup. Whatever I write. Later that day, a young couple entered the bookstore, visibly anxious, clutching a list of wedding readings. The woman-turned-bookseller helped them gently, guiding them to poetry and prose. "You look like you've been through it," the bride-to-be said with a nervous laugh. "I have," she replied, "and I survived. That means you can too." They left lighter, grateful. Malik observed from the doorway. "You're giving people more than books," he said. "You're giving them belief." She looked down at her ink-stained fingers and nodded. "Because once upon a time, someone gave that to me." She glanced at him knowingly. In a yellow cab. That evening, the sky blushed with sunset as they walked along the shore. The woman carried her journal, Malik, his usual silence. She said, "I used to think love had to be loud. Fireworks, vows, crowds." He responded, "Love isn't noise, it's clarity." She smiled. "Even if it ends?" He nodded. "Especially when it ends. That's when you know what was real." The waves kissed their feet, the breeze pulling at the hem of her dress. "Would you ever get married?" she asked suddenly. Malik chuckled. "Only if someone reads their vows with ink-stained hands and bare feet." She laughed, full and free. "Sounds like someone I'd read about in a good book." The next morning, Malik stood by his cab, engine idling softly. She handed him a fresh journal, blank but for one line inside. This time, "Drive for yourself." He looked at it for a long moment before pocketing it. "Thank you," he said, his voice lower than usual. "For everything you didn't know you gave." She didn't reply, just stepped forward and hugged him. No drama. No farewells. Just the weight of gratitude shared. Malik got into the cab, gave her one last look through the mirror, and pulled away. She watched until the dust settled, then returned inside. And there, etched into the window, her reflection whispered, "She left, but I stayed."